Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Most people spend their whole lives depending on a paycheck. It's what covers rent, food, bills, and everything else. But here's the truth that no one teaches in school. A paycheck isn't the only way to fund your lifestyle. In fact, the wealthy figured out a long time ago that real financial security doesn't come from working for money, but from building cash flow that arrives whether you work or not. This is what replaces your paycheck. And once you understand it, your entire approach to money changes. Let's make it simple. A paycheck is active income. You trade your time for money. The moment you stop working, the income stops. Cash flow, on the other hand, is income that continues to come in because your money or your systems are working for you. This could be dividends from investments, rent from real estate, royalties from something you've created, or even a small business that doesn't require you to be there daily. The key difference is that cash flow doesn't depend on your constant presence. Think about it. If you earn $4,000 a month from your job, you're fully dependent on showing up every month to keep that income coming. But if you had $4,000 a month in reliable cash flow from assets, you wouldn't need the paycheck anymore. Your lifestyle would be covered whether you worked or not. That's the trick. The wealthy used to buy freedom. They focus less on earning high salaries and more on turning their money into streams of income that mimic and eventually replace a paycheck. Here's where it gets interesting. Replacing your paycheck doesn't mean you need to start big. The first step is simply to think in terms of cash flow, not just savings. Most people save money with the goal of one day having a large nest egg. That's important. But a pile of money without income attached to it eventually runs out if you spend it. Cash flow solves that problem. If your investments or assets spin off regular income, you don't have to drain the principal. The flow itself funds your lifestyle just like a paycheck would. To see how this works, imagine you own $100,000 worth of dividend-paying stocks. On average, let's say they pay 4% a year in dividends. That's $4,000 annually without selling a single share. Now, that's not enough to live on, but it's a starting point. The moment you realize that your money can send you many paychecks, it changes how you think about wealth. Suddenly, every extra dollar saved isn't just sitting idle, dependence on your job. The same applies to real estate. If you save and buy a rental property that nets you $800 a month after expenses, that's $800 less you need from your paycheck to cover your lifestyle. Add a second property and suddenly you're covering $1,600 a month. At that point, you're not just saving, you're building a machine that generates income while you sleep. Over time, these streams add up and eventually the machine runs big enough to replace your full paycheck. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't have to happen overnight. Most people think financial freedom means quitting your job tomorrow. But the reality is much simpler. It starts with gradually reducing your dependence on your paycheck. Maybe your job covers all your expenses today, but in a few years your assets cover 30% of them. A few years later, maybe it's 70%. Eventually, you cross that line where your assets cover 100% of your living costs, and that's when the paycheck becomes optional. The hardest part is getting started because at first the numbers feel too small. Maybe your first dividend payment is $59 or your first digital product sale is $40. That doesn't feel like much compared to your paycheck. But that small flow is proof of concept. It's proof that money can come in without your direct laborer. The trick is to stack these flows until they add up to something meaningful. The wealthy understand this better than anyone. They don't need cash flow to be huge in the beginning. They just need it to exist, and then they scale it over time. Now you might be wondering, what exactly counts as cash flow that can replace a paycheck? Let's break it down. At its core, it's any reliable stream of income that doesn't require you to constantly show up. Stocks that pay dividends count. Bonds that pay interest count. Rental income counts. Business systems that run with minimal effort count. Even online assets like a course or book that continues to sell after you create it count. The form doesn't matter. What matters is consistency and reliability. One of the biggest mindset shifts is to stop asking how much can I save and start asking how much cash flow does this asset produce. A dollar saved is good, but a dollar that produces ongoing income is even better. Imagine you had $500,000 sitting in a bank account earning almost nothing. That pile of money feels secure, but it's just sitting there. Now imagine that same $500,000 invested into income-producing assets that give you $25,000 a year in cash flow. Suddenly you've created a permanent replacement for a large portion of a paycheck without touching the principal. That's the difference between dead money and working money. There's also a psychological benefit. When your paycheck is the only income, you always feel pressure to keep working. If you lose your job, the income disappears. But when you've built multiple streams of cash flow, the pressure lifts. You know that even if one stream slows down, the others keep going. This security allows you to make better choices with your time, career, and even your personal life. You stop working out of desperation and start working out of choice. Some people think this only works for the wealthy, but that's not true. Every wealthy person started by building their first small stream of income. The trick is patience. You won't replace your paycheck in a year or two, but you can start with small wins. Maybe it's buying a few shares of dividend stocks that give you $20 a quarter. Maybe it's saving up for your first rental property that covers your phone bill. Each step is progress. Each stream makes you a little less dependent on your job. And here's the real magic. Once your cash flow starts covering even a small percentage of your expenses, your savings accelerate. If your paycheck covers your lifestyle and your assets cover, say, your groceries or utilities, that frees up more of your paycheck to reinvest. That snowball effect compounds over time, and eventually you'll find your assets producing more income than you ever thought possible. The people who never escape paycheck dependency are the ones who only think about saving and spending. They never transition into thinking about ownership and cash flow. Ownership is what separates employees from financially free individuals. If you own assets, you own the paycheck replacement machine. If you don't, you'll always need someone else to provide your paycheck. So, here's the bottom line. The trick to replacing your paycheck isn't a secret formula or some get-rich-quick scheme. It's the slow and steady process of converting earned income into cash-flowing assets. Each asset becomes a little worker that brings you money without you being there. Over time, you build enough of these workers to cover all your living expenses. That's when freedom arrives. Not because you hit some magic number, but because your paycheck stopped being your only source of survival. The earlier you start thinking in terms of cash flow, the sooner you move toward that freedom, even if it feels small today, even if the numbers don't impress anyone else. Those first few dollars of cash flow are the foundation of your future independence. A paycheck might fund your present, but cash flow funds your future. And once you build enough of it, you'll never have to worry about depending on a paycheck again. Think about it. Your job pays you once for your time, but assets pay you over and over again. Every rental property, every dividend stock, every small business, or even digital product you create continues to earn while you sleep, travel, or spend time with family. That's the real difference between working for money and letting money work for you. Most people wait until they're tired of their job to think about cash flow. But the people who win financially start building it early when the amounts are small and the progress feels invisible. They don't wait until they need it. They build it in the background, quietly stacking streams of income until one day they realize their paycheck is optional. That's when the stress lifts. That's when money stops controlling every decision you make. And that's when your life starts to feel like your own again. Not because you quit working, but because work becomes a choice instead of a requirement. In the end, replacing your paycheck isn't about luck, timing, or shortcuts. It's about consistency. Every dollar you redirect into assets is a step closer to freedom. And the best part is once the cash flow takes over, the momentum keeps building. Thank you so much.